Space Ace.
Happy little games. In 1983, we were in the middle of what many people were dubbing the future of arcade gaming, which was the LaserDisc era. Thanks to the monumental success of Dragon's Lair, other companies jumped on board the LaserDisc train and released some pretty good titles such as Firefox.
They spotted me.
Cliffhanger.
Millions. Trillions.
It's counterfeit.
And Cobra Command. Just a short while after the arcade release of Dragon's Lair, players were treated to another Don Bluth animated LaserDisc classic by the name of Space Ace. This game arrived with a lot of fanfare and hoopla, and fans of the genre were not disappointed. What superhero inspired the creation of Ace? What was one major change in the gameplay that made it just a bit more fun to play over Dragon's Lair? So watch out for the Infanto Ray, because Commander Borf is hot on your tail. This is the history of Space Ace. The year is 1983, and Dragon's Lair is a roaring success in the arcades, on TV, and even in the merchandise section. Don Bluth and Rick Dyer of RDI Video Systems set out to create a follow-up to Dragon's Lair, but instead of a medieval setting, they wanted to take advantage of the popularity of Star Wars and set this one in deepest, darkest outer space. For those of you who have been living in a cave for the last 40 years and don't know what Dragon's Lair is, the game is a LaserDisc-powered full-motion video game that introduced the QuickTime event. The controls were fairly simple, with you having to push up, down, left, or right, and using a lone fire button for your sword. Rather than control the player directly, you were reacting to on-screen button prompts which triggered pre-drawn success or failure animations. Although limited in terms of playability, the animation was absolutely gorgeous and the death scenes were even funnier. Needless to say, the game swept the nation and became a massive hit. It is currently one of only 3 titles sitting in the Smithsonian alongside Pong and Pac-Man. Regarding Space Ace, the company wanted to create a more structured and faster-paced game with even better animation. The game would have randomized, longer action sequences with more bells and whistles, which was crucial to increase gamer interest. Mr. Bluth promised branching paths and more random access scenes, which allowed for potentially different games each time you play, which was a big complaint about Dragon's Lair. Once you were able to master Dragon's Lair, there was no reason to keep playing. Another complaint was the difficulty, so he decided to add flashing clues on the screen telling players what to do. For example, a flash on your gun meant you had to use your gun. These flashes were beginning to be incorporated at the tail end of the production of Dragon's Lair, and they do appear in some of the sequences, but not very many. These were designed to be implemented into Space Ace from the ground up. You had to have fast eyes and fast hands in order to use them though. Dragon's Lair felt like a bunch of scattered scenes put together with no cohesive storyline. The development of Space Ace was planned almost like a mini-movie, and it really shows as you play through the game. The Attract mode for Dragon's Lair used footage from the game with a voice-over narration. Space Ace used all-new animation created exclusively for the Attract mode, which tells the tale of exactly what's going on. Initially, Dexter was going to change into Ace in a similar fashion to young Billy Batson changing into Captain Marvel. This was changed because the writers felt that the teenage audience could relate more to an adult rather than a kid, So the beginning section was changed where we discover that Dexter is actually an adult in a kid's body. Even though it was animated, many sets, weapons, and spaceships were created and rotoscoped for the project, giving everything a more realistic look. Enough can't be said about the animation, which runs at a standard 24 frames per second, which is the same as most animated feature-length films. The colors are lush and vibrant and really pop off the screen. The original concept art for Dexter looked quite a bit different, featuring glasses and an extremely baggy uniform. Mr. Bluth went back to the well of pleasure and used his rather extensive Playboy collection while designing Kimberly. Ace was based on a square-jawed superhero type, while Commander Borf took inspiration from Popeye's main villain Bluto. There was a lot more voice work in this game, but to keep costs down, they relied on some in-house talent to do the job. Ace was portrayed by Jeff Eder. Will Finn portrayed Dexter and Baby Borf. Lorna Cook portrayed Kimberly. And Don Bluth portrayed Commander Borf, although they did modulate his voice heavily so it's not recognizable. Also, let's not forget about Michael Rye as he returns as the narrator. Prior to the game's release, Mr. Bluth treated this game as if it were a movie, as he had press kits, stills, and promotional materials sent out to various arcades. He even had movie posters created and shipped to arcades a couple of months in advance to hype up the release of the game. Space Ace blasted its way into the arcades in 1984. As the story goes, you take on the role of Dexter, who has been partially hit by Commander Borf's Infanto Ray. Since he was only partially struck, it reverts Dex into a skinny, scrawny young man. At this point, Commander Borf kidnaps your girlfriend Kimberly, so it's up to you to guide Dexter throughout the galaxy, trying to regain his manhood without the use of any sort of pumps or pills. You also have to rescue Kimmy and stop Commander Borf from taking over the Earth.
Space Ace, defender of justice, truth, and the planet Earth. Ace is being attacked by the evil Commander Borf.
Hold your fire! Who is that creep? Borf!
Earthlings must surrender to me.
No way, Borf, old buddy.
Oh! Ah! I've been hit!
By the Infanto Ray.
Earthlings must surrender to me.
Struggle with Dexter to regain his manhood. Destroy the Infanto Ray. Defeat the evil Borf.
Hey, Borf! Come on, Kimberly, let's go. I've been hit.
Be valiant, Space Warrior. The fate of Earth is in your hands.
Upon starting up the game, you'll notice 3 different difficulties, which include Cadet, Captain, and Space Ace. The only way to see all of the scenes in the game is to select Space Ace, which is the hardest mode. You still get to see the ending no matter which difficulty you choose, but not all of the scenes will be shown. For example, on Cadet mode, you only get to see around half of the scenes available. The gameplay is set up very similar to Dragon's Lair, although as promised, the playability is much more randomized with actual branching paths. You can press up, down, left or right on the joystick, but instead of a sword, Dexter has a blaster. At various points in the game, you are given the option to energize, which will turn Dexter into the superior Ace. This is where the branching paths take place. If you choose not to turn into Ace and play through the game as Dexter, you spend a lot of your time dodging items and trying to survive. You do fire your gun on occasion, but not very often. If you transform into Ace, you become the Superhero Supreme, allowing you to fire and defend yourself like a man. You can essentially play through the whole game as either Dexter or Ace, but to defeat Commander Borf, you have to be transformed into Ace. As I mentioned, sections of the screen will flash very quickly, giving you clues on what you are supposed to do. If the door flashes on the right side, then you press right on the stick. If the gun flashes, you use your gun, etc. If you push the joystick in the wrong direction, you will die, and usually in a hilarious way. You only have 3 lives to save the universe with, so you best be on your toes. Speaking of the death scenes, here are some of my favorites.
Far out.
Whoa! Ah! Whoa!
The game sees our hero in a number of situations where you have to jump, dodge, pilot a spaceship, and use your laser gun. To increase replayability and difficulty, a lot of scenes included horizontally flipped versions. If you play it on Space Ace mode, you will have to traverse all 13 levels in order to make it to Commander Borf. If you are able to make it to the final scene and actually complete it despite the vicious difficulty, you rescue Kimberly and take care of Commander Borf and save the day.
Oh, Dexter! Isn't he adorable? Can we keep him?
Call me Ace, huh?
Despite promises to the contrary and the inclusion of 3 separate difficulties, the game was extremely hard. One reason being is that the scenes were much longer, meaning you had to play through them a lot until all of the movements were down. This meant increased repetition and increased quarter usage, which once again was 50 cents a play. The window to input the correct command was also shortened. If you press the correct response too soon, it does not register. The final scene in particular is so fast and furious that memorization is essentially required. For a bunch of amateurs, the voice acting is pretty good. Ace has a cocky bravado while he is casually trying to put the moves on Kimmy. Lorna Cook, the actress who portrayed Kimberly, must have been in contact with my wife because she pulls off the whining and complaining character perfectly. Even Don Bluth does an excellent job as Commander Borf. When the game was released, it was a big hit for the company, but nowhere near as popular as Dragon's Lair. Arcade goers were put off by the increased difficulty and faster-paced gameplay. Arcade operators also didn't like the fact that a brand new IP was introduced rather than introduce a follow-up to Dragon's Lair to capitalize on its success. Now, even though it may not have been as popular, it still received its fair share of merchandise, including t-shirts, coloring books, and walkie-talkies, among others. The game was so popular that it was included as part of the Saturday Supercade, which aired back in 1983 on CBS.
Space Ace, defender of the galaxy. Together with his partner Kimberly, they battle the forces of the evil Borf, who seeks to conquer Earth with his dreaded Infanto Ray.
There were a few home computer conversions available, but let me show you a proposed Commodore 64 version which never came out. We all know how Dragon's Lair came out for the 8-bit systems, and there was no way they could replicate cartoon-style animation on a machine at home at that time. Back in 1987, two young programmers were a bit disgusted by the quality of the home ports of Dragon's Lair on the 8-bit machines and knew something more akin to the arcade original could be accomplished. They had planned out 15 levels but only created a 1-level demo. They used technologies such as the computerized digitizer for the Commodore 64 and actually created a game. While not graphically as good as the arcade game, does play very similar to the first level of Space Ace using standard sprites. After completing the demo, they sent it over to Electronic Arts, who rejected it, saying that they had never heard of an arcade game called Space Ace. The authors have said that a year later, Space Ace was released for the home platforms, but it was actually 1989 and it wasn't by Electronic Arts. Either way, it's a fantastic effort and it's too bad that the full game was never released. The game did not receive any home ports on the 8-bit systems, instead sticking with the 16 bits with some fantastic animation. ReadySoft was once again at the reins, and aside from not being able to include all of the scenes from the arcade game, this is pretty much Space Ace on your 16-bit home computer. In 1989, this was unheard of. When I purchased my Amiga 500 back in 1989, Dragon's Lair was one of the first games I ever owned, followed by Batman the movie and then Space Ace. Similar to how Dragon's Lair was ported, the 16-bit version does not use footage directly from the LaserDisc, but instead keeps static backgrounds and draws character sprites on top. Regardless, it looks fantastic and it plays just as you would expect. For some reason, they took out the flashing hints on the 16-bit home computer versions. Something else of note is that Dexter goes from a blonde to a brunette on certain levels. I guess only his hairdresser knows for sure. Thankfully, a lot of the death scenes carried over as well. The game shipped on 4 floppy disks, so you are going to need an external drive or two, otherwise your wrist is going to get quite the workout. It's a good thing you spent all those years playing strip poker on the Amiga. The game was also released for Atari ST, MS-DOS, Apple IIGS, and the Macintosh. Since all of the scenes couldn't be included in one game, Space Ace 2 Borf's Revenge was released a couple of years later that put the missing ones back in along with a couple of new ones. Let's go ahead and take a look at a platform that hasn't had hardly any Pac-Man QC lovin', and that is the CDI. The game was released in 1993, and despite the lower resolution and colors, this is a very faithful rendition of the arcade original. Everything from the arcade game has been transferred over, including the arcade game's intro. The screen flashes are also present, just like they should be, and it's a welcome addition since it's been a number of years since I played the actual arcade game. Keep in mind, if you manage to play this game on an actual CDI system, a digital video add-on card is required.
Space Ace, defender of justice, truth, and the planet Earth. Ace is being attacked by the evil Commander Borf.
Hold your fire.
Who is that creep?
Earthlings must surrender to me.
No way, Borf, old buddy.
Oh! Ah! I've been hit.
By the Infanto Ray.
Earthlings must surrender to me.
Once CD-ROM technology became much more affordable in home computers, ReadySoft went back and re-released a proper version of both Space Ace and Dragon's Lair on CD-ROM format. Despite the limited colors and lower resolution, pretty much everything from the arcade game is here, including the attract mode. The only odd thing is that the window to input the correct command has been decreased ever so slightly in this version.
Infanto Ray. Defeat the evil Borf.
Hey, boy.
Come
Come on, Kimberly, let's go. I've been hit.
Be valiant, Space Warrior. The fate of Earth is in your hands.
If you had the ever so cool but also ever so underutilized Sega CD add-on for your Sega Genesis, you could play a pretty darn good version of Space Ace. The video quality is fairly grainy thanks to the Genesis specs, but everything from the arcade game has been included. There is a problem with load times though, so keep that in mind if you are playing on actual hardware.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Absolute Entertainment brings the excitement of an arcade legend home to your Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Experience all the outrageous, out-of-this-world action of Space Ace. Being the defender of truth, justice, and the planet Earth has a lot of upside. You've got rugged good looks, rippling muscles, and a beautiful girlfriend named Kimmy. Then there's the hard part. You're pitted against the evil Commander Bork, who's blasted you with his dastardly infanto ray and turned you into a little kid, kidnapped Kimmy, and is threatening to conquer the Earth. And on top of all that, your name is Dexter. Your job? Rescue the girl, save the world, run the bad guy out of the solar system, and regain your manhood. Not necessarily in that order. It's Absolute Entertainment's Space Ace for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System.
Right smack in the middle of all these CD-ROM releases of Space Ace for the various home consoles, we get Space Ace for the Super Nintendo. You may have checked out the previous LaserDisc attempt on the Super Nintendo, which would be Dragon's Lair, which really didn't turn out too terribly bad. When this game first came out, people were having a titty fit due to the way the game played. The company tried to mimic the arcade's cartoon visuals as closely as possible with large characters on screen in different perspectives. The levels scroll automatically, forcing Dexter to keep up. If he doesn't keep up, he will die. You have to maneuver around by jumping and shooting. At certain points, you do get the option to energize and turn into Ace. Every so often, you will encounter special levels such as the Space Maze, Rocket Maze, Power Tube, Motorcycle Chase, and the Underwater Cavern. These all make excellent use of Nintendo's Mode 7 special effects. We do get some grainy, pixelated cutscenes in between each level and a small amount of digitized voice as well.
You will lose.
The graphics are nice, especially the backgrounds, which are very reminiscent of the arcade original. The colors are lush and vibrant and look really good on the Super Nintendo. Sounds pretty good, right? Not. The controls are extremely slippery and the level design is all over the place. For what it is, I enjoyed it. It's just too bad that the game design and controls were not just a little bit better. Space Ace was also released for the 3DO console. This is one of the better home versions at the time with fantastic colors and lush animations. The actual video is a little bit grainy, but other than that, this is as good as it was going to get on a home console back in 1996.
Ace, huh? Where's the ray located?
In the center of the complex.
Can you get us in there?
Yes.
Lug nuts. Dwarf know I'm here?
Yes, he's geared for battle.
Let's say we shoot Dwarf with his own infanto ray.
Why, yes.
Let's say we have dinner tonight.
Get serious.
I am.
Take a look.
Watch out for
In 1996, if you were lucky enough to own the mega hyped Atari Jaguar and the toilet bowl shaped CD-ROM attachment, then you could play Space Ace. Everything from the arcade game has been included, but for some reason the graphics are extremely pixelated and the colors are very washed out. The audio itself sounds very compressed and not as crisp as it sounds on the original LaserDisc. Playability-wise, it feels just like Space Ace.
Struggle with Dexter to regain his manhood. Destroy the Infanto Ray. Defeat the evil Borg.
Hey, Bart. Come on, Kimberly, let's go. I've been hit.
Be valiant, Space Warrior. The fate of Earth is in your hands.
In 1999, a version was released for standalone DVD players which allowed you to rescue Kimmy from the comforts of your living room, or your car, or any other place you had a DVD player. The controls are absolutely terrible in this version, with stiff, unresponsive playability. For a minute there, I thought TierTex actually came out of retirement to program this. There are much better versions of Space Ace available, so I don't know why you would want to go back and try this one, but if you do, knock yourself out. Me personally, I'd rather go stare into a solar eclipse.
Request permission to land. Aha! Borf is here.
Thanks to the advent of Blu-ray technology, we got a standard Space Ace release that will run on any Blu-ray player. This version fared much better than the DVD-ROM port, as this is actually quite responsive.
Dwarf, old buddy.
Oh! Ah! I've been hit.
By the Infanto Ray.
This means you must surrender to me.
Struggle with Dexter to regain his manhood. Destroy the Infanto Ray. Defeat the evil Borg.
Hey, Bart. Come on, Kimberly, let's go.
In 2010, the game was released by Digital Leisure for the Nintendo DSi. They were able to cram everything down onto your tiny DSi, and yes, it turned out fantastic. You have the option of playing either on the top screen or the bottom screen with varying levels of difficulty. Thankfully, an Infinite Lives option has been included, which you will definitely need. You also have the option of playing with just music or sound effects, or both.
Bart. Come on, Kimberly, let's go. I've been hit.
Be valiant, Space Warrior. The fate of Earth is in your hands.
In 2011, the game was released for the PlayStation 3. This is another fantastic conversion with all the bells and whistles of previous versions, such as the arcade attract mode and different difficulty settings. The animation is extremely smooth and the colors are gorgeous. The controls are responsive and the windows for the input commands are exactly as they should be. At the time, this was the best home conversion on the market.
Dexter, you're late.
Call me Ace, huh?
Thanks. I'll walk. Dexter, the Infanto Ray is about to be fired at Earth.
Call me Ace, huh?
A rather excellent version was released for the iOS and Android platforms. Despite using only touchscreen controls, the game works surprisingly well with arcade-perfect animation and sound. This was a great buy for only $10 back in the day, especially if you ever needed your Space Ace fix on the go. It was also included as part of the Dragon's Lair trilogy along with Dragon's Lair 1 and 2. The game also includes a much welcomed widescreen mode, but is also playable in the original aspect mode as well. Each game includes a number of extras such as interviews with the developers. Initially shipping on the Nintendo Wii, it has since been re-released for PlayStation 3, Windows, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch. And there you have it, my friends, the history of Space Ace. If you are curious about the making of Dragon's Lair and also LaserDisc technology in general, be sure and check out my video I did a few months back down below. Space Ace has always been one of my favorite LaserDisc games to play. I really enjoy the increased difficulty and faster style of gameplay. It's too bad that we never received a proper sequel. If you've never had a chance to take on Commander Borf all the while protecting Kimmy, be sure and give this game a shot. You'll be glad you did. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Also, if you would like to support me on Patreon, please click the link below. Thank you everybody so much for watching.